What is your dream job? Growing up, I was asked this question a lot, not just by my teachers, my parents, friends, and people in my life, but by myself. I used to ask myself this question over the years in school, while I was in college, even after college. I was like, what is my dream job? What is my dream career? What do I want to do for work for the rest of my life? And I would always have a hard time answering this question because I felt like whatever answer I gave, it would have locked me into a certain identity, a certain career path, life path that I wouldn't be able to change for the rest of my life, and I'd be stuck there. And I was afraid of making the wrong choice. I was afraid to just commit to a path, a specific job. And for a long time, I felt lost. Whenever I got asked that question, I would be like, I don't know. I'm just gonna figure it out as life goes on. I'm gonna, try different things and stuff. And yeah, I want to go over in this video, if you guys are in the same position I was, you guys feeling similar ways about, your future. You might not know what you want to do after school, if you guys are in school right now, or maybe you graduated college, high school, whatever you are in your life, you're doing something, you feel like you're just drifting along, you're not really sure what the next 5 years, 10 years might look like. And if anyone asks you this question, you feel like you're just kind of like pulling up blanks. I want to talk about how to kind of try to answer this question as best as you can. And this is just from my opinion, my experiences so far. I'm not the guy that knows all the answers, but I'm just gonna share what worked for me. I went to college right after high school because it was kind of expected of me. I had Asian parents. They put a lot of focus on education, a lot of value in education because, obviously their generation growing up, they didn't have a lot of education. And the more educated people back then in their generation made a lot of more money, was more successful, happy, all that stuff. So they wanted their kids to, follow that path. And, I did not grow up in the same world that my parents grew up in. I grew up in a different country, a different generation, right? And I'm going to be honest with you. For me, education was not super high on my list of values. I grew up, loved playing sports, athletics, fitness. That was my main interest and stuff. Education was kind of like cool, but if it wasn't exercise science or anything fitness related, I was not really interested in it. I was like, okay, whatever's. But if you guys are not into like exercise, something like that, like what society or what your parents, friends, whatever they might think is ideal for you, you might not agree with it, and that is totally fine. What I would say is if you're confused on what you want to do with your life, with your career, try different things, especially if you're young. If you're a young person, you should try freaking everything. Don't be afraid to pick the wrong choice, all right? You can always quit a fucking job, all right? A lot of people feel like once they get a job, they can't quit ever. They're going to stay in it for 5 years because if they quit too soon, it's going to look bad. Who is it going to look bad to? Your boss might not like it, but who gives a fuck what he likes, all right? Like, they will fire you in an instant if they, find a better employee, or if business is going to shit. The way the workplace works is that, like people are going to do what's best for them, right? Your boss is going to do what's best for him and his business, and if it means firing your ass, that's what he will do. He might say sorry and this and that, but at the end of the day, you're going to be out of a job. For you should look out for your own best interest, which is, obviously your finances and finding out what you want to do with your life. So I would suggest you try multiple different jobs. Anything that interests you, you should try it out when you're young, all right? I'm not saying, job hop, like I used to job hop a lot, right? And looking back, I kind of half regret it and half I didn't regret it. I half regret it because I did waste a lot of time job hopping randomly, kind of. But the other part of me did not regret it, because I could have done a lot worse. I could have stayed at a job for that same amount of time that I job hopped, and did the same job that I did not like, did not have no interest in, and wasted all my time learning zero skills, gaining zero experience, meeting zero new people, which a lot of people do these days, and I feel like that is worse than job hopping. You want to try out different things that pique your interest, but at the same time, you don't want to stay in one thing too long. If you know that is not right for you, you've got all you can out of it, all right? And you don't want to also job hop endlessly. We're going to reach a certain point eventually where you try out all these different things, and you're going to know what you like to do, what you don't like to do, and find something, whether that be from like fiction, like movies, stories, books, anime, whatever you guys are into, kind of, that like excites you, that makes you just like, you think it's pretty cool, pretty badass, or pretty interesting, and go after it, even if for a lot of people it doesn't sound practical and doesn't sound realistic. Like, at the end of this day, at the end of this life, this is your life, are you gonna like spend your actual one life living what other people think you should live, how everybody else thinks you should live, working a job they think you should work, even though you have no passion, no interest, no desire to fucking work that job? And a job's gonna take up a lot of part of your life, right? Like, it'll take up most of your day, half your day at least, if you're working full time. And yeah, there is something to be said about picking the right job, but at the same time, like, make a decision, but the decision should be like, instead of thinking about like what job, what career is the most stable, the most accepted by society, think about what kind of person you want to be. When you in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when you look back in your life, when you're retired, when you're like 60 years old, 70 years old, like when you're that old, and you're just sitting on a porch, or you're in a hospital bed or something like that, like, and you look back your life, what did you want to say that you did? What kind of experiences do you want to have? What kind of person do you want to be by that time? Don't just think about it like your job title and your income. Think about like what kind of person you want to become. Do you want to be somebody that like that helps others, that saves other people, first responder type jobs? Do you want to be like a rich ass motherfucker, or someone just a crazy salesman, makes a lot of money? You want to be like, you can be a doctor, lawyer, you can be anything really. Like, this day and age, opportunities, especially if you live in America or any first world developed country, opportunities are endless, man. Like, back in the day, people, like, wherever they grew up, in the area of the world they grew up, that was like, a lot of things were set in stone back then. These days, not so much, man. Opportunities are endless. Things are not set in stone, and you can change your fate if you put in the work and you put your ass out there. All right, do not settle for just an average ass life, a life that you just tolerate but does not excite you. All right, not every day is going to be passion, excitement, and fucking, you're not going to be at this high every day. I used to think that, I just got, once I find the perfect job, every day I wake up, I'm going to be passionate, I'm going to be fired up, ready to go, and it's going to be like a fucking movie every day. That is not how life works, unless you're constantly a heroin addict or some shit. But like, even if you find the perfect job, right, there's going to be days you wake up and it's just going to be a regular fucking day of going to work, and there's nothing wrong with that, all right? Because that's how life is, all right? No one lives on a constant high every day, all right? There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, and there's going to be the baseline, all right? But that does not matter. It does not, like, what matters is that at the end of the day, you look back at what you did today, your week, your months and years, and you feel proud of yourself, Like, even if the work is hard, even if it's easy, as long as you can look in the mirror at the end of the day and feel proud of what you did, of who, and more importantly, of who you are and who you're becoming, that is what matters. All right. You know, yeah, you want to, you know, try to make as much money as you can so you can support yourself and your family. You know, you want to stay healthy, all this like stuff that obviously is good for us. But, you know, a lot of people get wrapped up in the external stuff, but they don't, you know, focus on the internal stuff, which I feel like is the core of what makes someone satisfied with life, you know. Like there's a lot of rich people out there in supposedly, you know, good jobs that are unhappy with their life, you know. And then you ask them, well, you know, you wonder how are you so unhappy when you have all this money, all this status, you know, these white collar sought after jobs. Like how can these people be unhappy? Well, money, you know, will make you happy to an extent, but money is not everything. It's not the cure-all to every single problem, you know. If you don't like who you are at the end of the day, regardless of what's in your bank account, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be probably like depressed or angry or some other unhappy emotion, you know. So yeah, I mean, like, so practical tips for this video, like if you guys are feeling completely lost, you're bored out of your mind, or you just hate your job, you hate your boss, whatever it is, you know, I would say start looking online. After work, on the weekends, whenever you have a day is off, take the time. You're gonna have to invest time to explore new things. All right. If you keep doing the same thing every day, guess what? Nothing is probably gonna change. So you need to, you know, hop online or go in person and figure out what sounds interesting. If you don't know what sounds interesting, I used to look on the job boards and say all these jobs look boring as fuck and stuff. And you know, you don't like try, like, ask yourself, what movies do you like to watch, what books do you like to read, what shows are you into that like inspire you, motivate you, and you watch it and you're like, dang, what that is so cool. And try to find something in, like a job or something in real life that simulates that thing, right? Like movies and stuff, they're based off of something, right? And like just go after it, man, you know. Like don't leave anything on the table in this life. Don't live with the way you live with regrets is when you don't go after things that, you know, your heart says you should, but everybody else says you shouldn't. You know, if you listen to everybody else and not your heart, that's how you end up with regrets. So listen to your heart, you know. Everybody else can say whatever the fuck they want, but they're not the ones living your life. This is your life. They're not the ones looking at your reflection at the end of the day, all right? This is your life, you know. Go after it, make mistakes, fail, and get back up and keep trying, all right? It's better to fail, and succeed than never try and never succeed. So get out of your comfort zone, try new things, you know, chase what excites you to an extent, and, you know, try to focus on the person you want to become in the future, all right? And then that will lead you to a job or career or something to get you there. So like and subscribe if this video helps you, and comment for more topics you like to see.